In the 1950s, America had broken free from the shackles of wartime economics. It was walking with the swagger of a nation that had the world by the tail. Scientists had harnessed nuclear energy. Jet-propelled airplanes were breaking speed records, and the race to space was on. But perhaps more than anything else, one thing melded imagination and consumerism, putting this era in perfect context. The concept car. Unlike satellites, rockets, and jet planes, these dream cars were accessible. People flocked to auto shows to see concept cars in their titanium-bodied glory. They were snapshots of how America perceived its future. They were simply out of sight, unforgettable. But what happened to them? Most were destroyed. Some just plain vanished. But amazingly, some are still here.
This thing says, hey, the traditional definition of a car isn't the only definition of a car, and let's see what we can do. Let's see how we can push the envelope.
People just gravitated towards this. It was something they had never seen before in an automobile. It really brought out people's imaginations of what was going to come.
Reintroducing the 1962 Ford Mustang prototype and the 1959 GM Firebird 3. (1962). The owner of a small chain of variety stores founds a company called Walmart and plants the seed for what would become one of the largest American multinational corporations of all time. Comedian Johnny Carson takes over as permanent host of NBC's Tonight Show and becomes an American late-night television star for 30 years to come. Long-lasting American icons are being born, and in the automotive industry, Ford is about to give birth to an American icon all its own. This is the 1962 Ford Mustang prototype.
This car was designed because Ford Motor Company had made the decision to get back into auto racing, and they wanted something that would whet the public's appetite, that would say performance. And so a group of Ford engineers and designers came up with this sleek little two-seater sports car. There was a kind of traditional definition of what a family car was. It was a sedan or a station wagon. This thing says, hey, cars could be small and neat and sharp and streamlined. It says, the traditional definition of a car isn't the only definition of a car, and let's see what we can do. Let's see how we can push the envelope.
After the demise of the two-seater Thunderbird in the late 1950s, Ford wanted to remind the car-buying public that they were still a player in the performance world. For Ford, creating a sleek prototype was only half the battle. The other half? Timing. Ford needed to get this car built in a hurry.
The idea behind this car was to get it ready for the United States Grand Prix in Watkins Glen, New York. And they had only about 100 days in which to get that done. But they wanted it ready to debut then so that people would see it and think of Ford Motor Company as a performance company, which hadn't been the image Ford had been projecting for some time. The public loved this car. Dan Gurney, who was one of the top American Formula One drivers, drove it around the track. It caused a sensation. Later on, he drove it again out on the West Coast at the Laguna Seca track. Ford took it around the country to colleges to gauge reactions, and of course, as you might expect, the reaction in colleges was enthusiastic.
This marketing strategy was aggressive and focused. There's no question that this car's design and its high-profile debut was unique. But the uniqueness of the Ford Mustang prototype didn't stop there.
There's a number of things about this car that are really intriguing. The first thing is its rear engine, which Ford Motor Company had never built a rear engine car before. The engine is a V4, which they actually took from a German car that they built, the Ford Taunus. The seats are fixed and the pedals are adjustable. And the steering column is adjustable, and those are some things that we've actually picked up later on. It's got a built-in roll bar. And it's got disappearing headlights, and it's a two-seater, which Ford had built a two-seater called the two-seater Thunderbird, but they'd already given that up and gone to the four-seater Thunderbird. So this thing was a real departure for Ford Motor Company.
Today, the Mustang is one of the most recognizable names in the automotive world. Surprisingly, the original name of the 1962 Ford Mustang prototype had nothing to do with wild horses.
When the name first came up, people were not thinking of the horse. They were actually thinking of the P-51 fighter plane from World War II. But as the design progressed, that P-51 Mustang name kind of receded, and the running horse became more and more the motivation behind the name. And so when the car appeared, there was a logo with a running horse on it designed. But the origin of the name actually goes back to World War II.
Wild horses and fighter planes aside, Ford's marketing strategy and its design got everyone's attention. The target market was hungry for race car looks, and in just 2 short years, the production version of the Ford Mustang would be released. But it didn't look anything like this, which begs the question, is this really the first Mustang? The 1962 Ford Mustang prototype was designed for one reason: to change the public's perception of Ford Motor Company by pushing the idea of performance. This prototype car looked the part, but it looked almost nothing like the final production version of the Mustang.
A lot of people want to call this car the first Mustang, and it is, but it isn't. It's the first car to wear the name Mustang. And there are, especially the guys who were involved in building it, wanted to see it go into production. Lee Iacocca, however, understood that however cute this car was and however fun it was, the market for two-seaters was really limited. And if he was going to have a car named Mustang, it was going to have to be at least a four-seater. So there was never any real chance that a production version of this car would be available to the public.
The 1962 Ford Mustang prototype, as it existed, did not get mass-produced. But this concept car can be considered one of the most important concept cars of its era. It influenced a definitive shift in the North American car industry, and in the process, sparked the creation of a true American icon.
At the time this car was produced, the notion of a production Mustang was no more than a gleam in various people's eyes. And so nothing about this car gave any hint of the fact that the production Mustang would be this enormous hit and would in fact create a whole different class of automobiles that came to be known as pony cars. One question that gets asked about this car is, was it necessary? Would there have been a Mustang without this car? I think there probably would have been. I think that enough people were aware of the fact that there was this burgeoning group of baby boomers. There was also baby boomers' parents looking for second cars. And not just some cheap second car, but a fun car. And I think the time was ripe for something like the four-seater production Mustang. Whether or not it would have been called a Mustang or not, it's hard to say. It might have been some other name, or Ford might have been a little slower off the mark, and the first pony car might have been the Barracuda. And then who knows? Maybe we'd all be talking about fish cars.
In the end, the pony car trend may have been inevitable. But the significance of the 1962 Ford Mustang prototype is too strong to be marginalized.
This Mustang is unusual in the world of concept cars because it had a long life. Most concept cars actually get smashed after a certain period. At least in spirit, as well as in name, it gave birth to a production car. And most concept cars don't really do that.
In the mid-60s, the Ford Mustang's production legacy was well underway. Meanwhile, the need for the prototype that created this legacy was fading. Designers at Ford may have created this car in a hurry, but they weren't in a huge hurry to say goodbye.
In the middle of 1964, when the production Mustang came out, this car had served its purpose. And in fact, because it's so cool, it might tend to kind of upstage the production Mustang. So at that point, this car went into storage. You didn't see it very much. Actually, some people in Ford Motor Company wanted to get rid of it. Once they've outlived their usefulness as a PR prop, they're often destroyed. People didn't want to see this car destroyed, and a whole variety of people at Ford took steps to hide it in various places. And it literally got moved around from one hiding place to another, sort of escaping the people who said, that thing's old, it's obsolete, let's get rid of it. And that went on really until 1974, when the car ultimately was given to Henry Ford Museum.
Decades after its debut, the 1962 Ford Mustang prototype is still turning heads. Just like the automotive production icon it inspired, the allure of this concept car is everlasting.
People are intrigued by the fact that that there was an antecedent to the Mustang that was a concept car, and as cool a concept car as this one. The enduring popularity of the Mustang is really intriguing, because most of the other pony cars actually went away, but the Mustang's always been there. Part of it has to do with the fact that it was first, and so there was this kind of reservoir of good feeling about the Mustang. A lot of people who were young bought them, and I think a lot of people who are buying them now were from that era, but want to feel young again. People often find themselves emotionally connected to things that speak to their youth. Those things from your youth you tend to remember more than the things that you saw last year. And so I do have a certain emotional connection to this car, largely because of when it came out and the age I was at that time.
In 1959, 2 full years before the first man would journey into outer space, GM brings outer space to man.
The reaction was tremendous. People just gravitated towards this. It was something they had never seen before in an automobile. The features on the car were so space-aged, so far out there that it really brought out people's imaginations of what was going to come.
In 1959, NASA announces its selection of the 7 military pilots hand-picked to become the first U.S. astronauts. The Mercury 7, as they became known, would go on to fly on all classes of NASA manned orbital spacecraft of the 20th century. The U.S. launches the Explorer 7 satellite from Cape Canaveral and initiates the era of satellite climate studies. New frontiers of space research are being reached, and the automotive industry reaches a new frontier of its own. This is the 1959 GM Firebird 3.
When we showed this car at the Motoramas, the reaction was tremendous. People just gravitated towards this. It was something they had never seen before in an automobile.
The 1959 GM Firebird 3 was the third edition of GM's famed turbine-powered concept trilogy. The Firebird 1 was a jet plane on wheels. The Firebird 2 was a self-driving futuristic family mover. For the Firebird 3, the expectations were astronomical.
They went back to a more traditional, sportier looking arrangement. It's very similar to the fighter jet aircraft of the day with the twin bubble fighter canopies. Difference between this and the Firebird 2 is this is the last of technological wonders that they've applied to this car, such as drive-by-wire. Drive-by-wire allows you to put the controls anywhere in the car. It is not a mechanical interface between the steering and the driver. It's all electronic. Very unique system, which is just coming of age here in the last few years as far as drive-by-wire throttle systems and some drive-by-wire steering.
Loaded down with new technologies, the much-anticipated Firebird 3 lived up to the hype. But with or without the bells and whistles, this car could draw a crowd. The Firebird 3 was a sight to behold, from nose to tail fins.
When viewing the Firebird 3 from the front, you'll notice that it's more of a nose cone than a grille. It houses the headlamps as well as the guidance system and the sensors for the guidance system. As you move back on the Firebird 3, you notice the unique fighter canopy style windshield pods. They are also incorporated into the doors. It has a recognition chip that allows the car to recognize who's coming and allows the doors to be unlocked. The doors open on a very unique hinge system. From inside the car, they're automatic. We're opening it manually today, which introduces you into this very unique cockpit. As you can see, the fighter jet theme continues on the interior, very reminiscent of the seats in the fighter jets, as well as the shoulder harness style seat belts. It also features an onboard fire system, and since there are two separate pods, one for the passenger, one for the driver, and it can be driven from either side, there is an intercom system. So when you need to talk to the person next to you, you push this button, speak into the microphone, and it comes through a speaker on the other side to communicate. One of the other unique features of this car is the joystick style steering. You turn it to the right to go right, turn it to the left to go left, push it forward to go forward, pull it back to bring the car back to a neutral state. As we move rearward on the Firebird 3, you'll notice the fresh air intake for the gas turbine engine. After it goes through the gas turbine engine, it comes through the exhaust system, which is deck mounted in the back. You'll notice from the Firebird 2 to the Firebird 3 that it is moved inboard for even more safe operation. This car has 7 fins on it. Very aerodynamic looking, very rocket ship, very spacecraft looking vehicle of the day. On the trailing edge of the side fin is also the taillight. And this is reminiscent of some of the taillights that were to come on the Cadillacs in the mid-60s. And it also has a lighting system in the back to also simulate the jet engines coming out of the back of the car.
Both of the Firebird 3's turbine predecessors were outrageous, ultra-modern dream cars. But neither of them were practical enough to rocket into the realm of mass production. Despite its show-stopping appeal, the fate of the Firebird 3 would be no different. But this didn't keep it from inspiring the world of automotive design and technology.
This really achieved a reputation for General Motors as being really advanced in the application of alternative fuel vehicles. This vehicle will run on not only gasoline, but it'll also run on kerosene and fuel oil. So it's an alternative fuel vehicle, if you will, of the day. The general reaction today is just like it was in '59. I mean, people are just amazed at the direction that the automobile was heading in 1959 with its far-out features. But when we look at it from an engineering and innovation standpoint, it's kind of interesting to note the parallel between what was done in '59 and what we're looking at today with some of our cars with advanced electronics on it.
From the beginning, this car was only ever meant to be a one-off. This third and final turbine-powered spectacle wasn't created to start something. It was created to finish something. It wasn't a debut. It was a finale.
One of the things that I admire most about this car is, you know, it was a dare to be different project. And we didn't rest on our laurels here at General Motors, and I think it shows us an example of how we should move forward as we design and innovate automobiles and transportation for the future.
When you're the third and final child in a family, not much of your fate is left to the imagination. The Firebirds 1 and 2 were not mass-produced, but they were deemed important enough to preserve. The Firebird 3 was treated no differently.
This car was preserved, you know, it's so unique in some of the features that are on it. It was recognized as a keeper early on. Harley Earl kept very close tabs on these cars throughout his career, so we're very lucky that these cars were recognized as milestone cars for General Motors and kept. But they're for the future. We're just the keepers of them today.